Well, it's used by almost everyone, so much, in fact, that it has become a verb. Do you Google? I bet you do. Well, U.S. authorities say they may ask a judge to break up Google. Forcing the search engine giant to sell off parts of its business is just one option being considered by the Justice Department. Government lawyers could also seek to restrict how Google uses artificial intelligence or block it from paying companies like Apple billions of dollars to ensure that Google is the default search engine on iPhones and other devices. A federal judge ruled back in August that Google is an illegal monopoly in the United States. Well, Jennifer Huddleston is a technology policy research fellow at the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. Jennifer, it's good to have you with us. Got a lot of questions for you. Let's talk first, though, about what this could mean for Google. The core papers reveal that the DOJ could target Chrome and Android, for example. What would that look like?
So the proposed remedies are probably much more broad than you might have expected if you looked at the ruling in this particular case earlier. The case really focused on the default agreements that had occurred between Google and companies like Apple when it comes to having Google as the default search engine on a browser or on a phone. Some of the proposed remedies go so far as to propose a structural solution, something that would actually break up Google and its popular products like the Chrome browser, like the Android Play Store, like the Android operating system, and put more regulations around the ability of the company to interact with these products in ways that would really fundamentally change these products as consumers understand them.
What would this mean for the consumer? I mean, I know what the DOJ claims regarding Google's monopoly, but is Google's business in any way going against the wishes of consumers?
So I think this actually may point to one of the very intriguing elements of the proposed remedies, which was kind of this idea that Google would have some sort of responsibility to educate consumers about other search engines, which seems a bit odd. Google is a very popular product because consumers find it to be the superior product. There are products out there like Microsoft Bing, there are products out there like DuckDuckGo that have tried to distinguish themselves in different ways. But when we look at places where we have seen requirements around browser selection or around search engine selection, such as in Europe, what we find is that consumers still choose Google because they find that it best serves their needs.
But do they choose Google, or is Google an example of product inertia? I mean, when I get, let's say, a new iPhone and the default search engine is Google, I really don't think about it, and I don't ask for something different because I'm acquainted, I'm used to Google. I mean, is that part of what's going on here, is that we're just comfortable with what we already know?
Well, you can always change the defaults in just a few clicks if you do prefer one of those other search engines. But we are continuing to see a lot of evolution in search, particularly as AI comes into play. Mm-hmm. We certainly have seen this with the way that Microsoft has been investing in incorporating AI co-pilots into various products, including Bing, and the fact that Google itself continually has to invest in AI products and in other ways of improving its search. This isn't the type of behavior you would expect to see from a company that could just rest on its laurels and assume that consumers would stick with it. They're having to continue to meet consumer demands in order to remain that preferred product amongst consumers.
We know that Google is owned by Alphabet, and Alphabet has already said that this is a clear case of overreach. Let me ask you, is that what this is?
We saw a broad list of remedies proposed, and I think we really have to think about how these would impact consumers, as well as how many of these are actually tied to what we saw the judge rule in the case. This case was really about those default agreements, and many of these remedies go much broader than that and could have a very significant impact on the way consumers experience their devices, whether they're Android devices or whether they're choosing to engage in search at a time when we are seeing a lot of innovation and disruption, not only with AI, but with the emergence of other more specialized products as well, that particularly in kind of the search industry. I think it's important to note, too, that this is happening at the same time that there's another case ongoing when it relates to advertising. And this week, we've seen small businesses mentioning how they're concerned about how a negative ruling in that advertising case could impact their ability to reach the consumers that they want. So while we often think about antitrust just in terms of what it means for these big companies, the remedies in this case could have a much more significant impact on companies of all sizes, as well as on the end user consumers.
And Jennifer, what kind of time horizon should we be working with? I mean, this isn't going to be solved anytime soon, is it?
That's something that's really important to remember when we're talking about antitrust. These are not quick cases. Even if we see some of these remedies go into play, it will be a long time coming. The next step is to see a more specific set of remedies proposed by the DOJ in late November. Google will have a chance to respond with its remedies in near the end of the year in late December. The trial on remedies will occur sometime in spring of 2025. And then, of course, there are always likely to be some sort of appeals process or some sort of disputes ongoing. So it'll still be quite some time before we know what the actual remedies, if there are not other appeals that may happen along the way, could look like in this particular case.
And I ask you, before we run out of time, have you found yourself looking at other search engines just because of the attention that this case has received?
So I find, like many users, that the definition of search is changing. How I engage in looking for different products may depend on the type of information I'm looking. Like many of us, I am starting to use some of those generative AI tools. And in other cases, I'm going to more specialized items to find, video forward information or product reviews. And then I am still using a variety of search engines as well.
Okay. Jennifer Huddleston, as always, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights tonight, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you.